Ryan Reynolds is now caught talking about staring at a stranger who was feeding their baby.
I just kept on staring and staring and staring, and then I just kind of got locked into that like a time.
Blake Lively just called out Ryan Reynolds after a sexual harassment. Victim accused him of ruining her life. It's a complete mess.
And it sounds so bad given Blake's complaint now. I can't even.
Blake Lively has struggled to get support for her harassment claims. But now her own husband is making a joke out of it, tying women breastfeeding and calling it funny.
This isn't a funny joke if you find it so sensitive when it happens to your wife. It's not funny, Ryan. This whole thing was nuts. Nothing Blake's accusing Justin of was even that bad.
And here's why this scandal could be devastating for Blake, her entire lawsuit against. Justin Baldoni hinges on one major claim that he sexually harassed her in multiple ways.
The one about, he burst in on me uninvited when I was breastfeeding my child. She says we should run lines together. He's like, anytime. And she's like, come on over. I'm breastfeeding the baby in the trailer, but come on over.
And yeah, one of those alleged offenses includes him walking into her trailer while she was breastfeeding. She described it as a moment of deep humiliation. Something that made her feel unsafe on set, an incident so disturbing that her husband, Ryan Reynolds, supposedly felt compelled to defend her in the most aggressive way possible.
He invited him in, and a lot of women are comfortable having someone around when they breastfeed, so it's not so weird, especially out in Hollywood, for him to assume, yeah, I guess she's fine with this because she did let him in. Ryan Reynolds comes off terribly.
He went after Baldoni both publicly and privately, making it clear that what Baldoni did was unacceptable. That no man should ever be in a position to violate a woman's privacy like that.
Me staring, and I didn't know what the appropriate facial expression was for that, so I just kept on staring and staring and staring, and then I just kind of got locked into that like a time warp.
But here's where it all starts to fall apart, because Ryan himself has done the exact same thing, if not worse. And he was so comfortable with it that he even joked about it in public.
That video is a response to a question a fan had asked Ryan Reynolds, asking, if you had a time machine, which historical event would you like to go back in time to witness?
This isn't just speculation or some Hollywood gossip Rion. Reynolds openly admitted on national television that he once stared at a breastfeeding mother in a hotel lobby for several minutes. He wasn't just passing by.
Ryan Reynolds can go do this as the time event he wants to go back and revisit when he stared at a stranger during the scene.
He wasn't just glancing in her direction, he was fully locked in, making prolonged eye contact while this woman, who was fully covered, sat there confused and uncomfortable, wondering why a random man wouldn't stop staring at her as she fed her child.
To sue. Yeah, she says that's sexual harassment. Pick one. Would you like this woman to come back in time and sue you now?
And Ryan, he told this story like it was some hilarious anecdote, cracking jokes about how awkward it was, completely ignoring the fact that he had done exactly what his wife accused Baldoni of doing.
Or is your wife being ridiculous? Tell us which one is fact.
Think about the sheer hypocrisy here. Blake Lively, who claims to be a champion for women, turned an entire lawsuit into a crusade over eye contact being harassment. She dragged Baldoni's name through the mud over something that, by her own logic, her own husband should now be held legally accountable for. And Ryan, he stood by her, playing the perfect supportive husband, all while knowing full well that he had done something even more blatant and never faced any consequences for it.
Ryan Reynolds, one of the things he allegedly exploded on Justin Baldoni over was alleged fat shaming of Blake, because I guess when she was shooting this movie, she was postpartum.
Of course, Blake would never call Ryan's actions harassment. That would mean holding him to the same standard she holds every other man to. And that's not how this power couple operates. They set their own rules when it's convenient, acting as the moral authority on sexual misconduct when it suits them, but laughing off their own questionable behavior when it doesn't. They expect the public to ignore the contradiction, but the internet never forgets.
Blake Lively mad at James Heath for looking at her and staring at her in the eyes, directly at her while she was blind.
And here's where things get even worse, Blake. Lively's own accusations become completely unhinged when compared to her husband's actions. She accused another man, Jamie Heath, of sexual misconduct simply for making eye contact while she was pumping milk.
To feed her baby. All this is the complaint that was made, which she later says, oh, I don't think you were trying to cop a look, but whatever. This whole complaint about he was there uncomfortably while she was pumping. It's insane.
She didn't claim he touched her or said anything inappropriate, just that he looked in her direction. And that alone was enough for her to label him a predator, enough to add another layer of drama to her case. And enough to expect the public to rally behind her and see her as a victim.
It's insane. But now Ryan Reynolds can go do this as the Time event. He wants to go back and revisit when he stared at a stranger doing the same thing.
Critics were quick to call this out. Tell Rich, one of the more vocal figures analyzing the lawsuit, openly mocked the absurdity of Blake's claims.
While Lively is having body makeup removed, she was not topless as she claimed in her complaint. She was either nursing or pumping while fully clothed. Lively asked Heath to face the wall while they determined a time to meet with the other producers who were standing just outside the...
If eye contact is harassment, then shouldn't Ryan Reynolds face the exact same scrutiny? Shouldn't he be held accountable for humiliating a woman in public? Shouldn't he be the one dragged through the mud in a lawsuit? Of course. None of that will happen because this was never really about justice or boundaries. It was about control, power, and the weaponization of accusations for personal gain.
Later on June 1st, 2023, Lively accuses Heath of making eye contact with her while she had asked him to face the wall.
And let's talk about Ryan's hypocrisy specifically, because if you think the breastfeeding incident was just a one-off, think again. This is a pattern. Ryan has built his entire public image on being the snarky, self-aware, funny guy, but the more you look into his past behavior, the more you realize that a lot of his jokes haven't aged well.
I like to get that woman some fucking compensation. It's okay when you do it. It's a problem when other people do it. Interesting. You just stood there and stared because you didn't know what to do. You're a grown man. You're a married man. You're a father. You've seen a woman breastfeeding before. Why were you staring at this woman?
Ryan's entire career is filled with moments where he's made women uncomfortable, pushed the boundaries of what's acceptable, and gotten away with it by hiding behind comedy. But when another man does the same, suddenly it's a crime worthy of a lawsuit. And it's not just the media catching on, the public is too. People are no longer buying into Blake and Ryan's selective outrage. The internet has called them out for picking and choosing when to be offended, when to play the victim, and when to weaponize identity politics for their own benefit. And the backlash is already starting to show.
Your wife is saying she asked somebody to look at the wall because she was pumping or nursing or whatever.
Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds spent years carefully crafting their image as Hollywood's ultimate power couple, two untouchable A-listers, who not only dominated the box office, but also positioned themselves as the industry's favorite celebrity duo. But now, that illusion is crumbling fast. The very people who once championed them, the same stars who publicly supported them, are now backing away at record speed. And it's not just minor industry figures. Their closest allies, the ones they relied on to maintain their elite status, are cutting ties.
This isn't a funny joke if you find it so sensitive when it happens to your wife. It's not funny, Ryan.
But she wants to sue. Yeah, she says that's sexual harassment.
One of the biggest blows to their carefully crafted image, Taylor Swift, for years. Blake and Taylor were inseparable, publicly flaunting their friendship on social media, spending holidays together and presenting themselves as an unstoppable force in Hollywood. But now, Swift wants nothing to do with Blake Lively's mess. And it's not just speculation. The cracks in their friendship are now fully visible.
Ryan Reynolds comes off terribly. He had them over to their penthouse in New York, and Taylor Swift was believed to be there, according to this